Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to explore a powerful and emotional story from part 1 and part 2. A story where family boundaries blur, danger hides behind familiar faces, and a mother and a child are forced to stand against fear. This is a journey about courage, protection, and the quiet strength it takes to defend the ones you love when the past refuses to let go. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming videos. Now, let's begin. Some mornings feel completely ordinary, quiet, predictable. But sometimes, all it takes is a single delayed moment for that calm to disappear forever. A young boy walks to school with his backpack slung over one shoulder. A mother watches him go, believing he's safe. What she doesn't know is that somewhere nearby, someone calling herself family is already setting a trap. In this story, the line between family and danger becomes terrifyingly thin. When the past refuses to stay buried, when cruelty wears a familiar face, a mother is forced to step into a police station, shaking, but determined to protect her child at all costs. Why does Maya suddenly fall silent? Who is behind the threats and the stalking? And when the truth finally surfaces, will it be enough to stop the shadow closing in on this small family? Stay with me. This is a story about fear, about courage, and about a love powerful enough to stand against the darkness. If stories about injustice toward children move you, leave a comment and follow the channel. Let's walk with Huyen's family as they fight to reclaim their peace. The story begins now. Under the pale gray midday sky, the schoolyard felt strangely suffocating. Children laughed and chatted as usual, their voices echoing across the grounds. But beneath it all, something felt wrong, like a quiet storm approaching. Maya stood near the old bang tree, clutching her small backpack tightly against her chest. She wasn't crying, but her wide eyes told a different story, pure, unmistakable fear. Standing in front of her was her grandmother. The woman's gaze was cold, her smile sweet but fake, her voice dripping with hidden intent. "Come here with Grandma," she said softly. "I'll take you to see your father. He misses you so much." Her words sounded gentle, but her hand shot out fast, gripping Maya's wrist. The little girl flinched, yanked her hand back, and shook her head again and again. "No, I don't want to go. I'm scared." The grandmother's expression hardened instantly. "You're my granddaughter. I have every right to take you. Your mother isn't here, and that man, he's nothing." A few parents nearby began to glance over, sensing something wasn't right. The teacher had stepped away briefly and hadn't noticed yet. The grandmother pulled Maya again, harder this time. Maya cried out, her voice shaking, desperate. "Daddy! Daddy!" The shout rang through the schoolyard like thunder. At that exact moment, someone appeared at the gate. His face was pale, his chest heaving as if he had run the entire way. His eyes locked onto the hand gripping Maya's wrist, his jaw tightening. "What do you think you're doing?" His voice was low, furious. The grandmother froze, then slowly turned and forced a cold smile. "I'm taking my granddaughter to see her father. This is a family matter. You have no right to interfere." Jay stepped forward without hesitation. He tore the woman's hand away and pulled Maya into his arms, crouching down and holding her tight. Like if he let go for even a second, she'd vanish. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Daddy's here. Daddy's here." Maya broke down instantly, burying her face into his chest, clutching his shirt as if it were the only safe thing left in the world. "I was scared," she sobbed. "She was dragging me. I didn't want to go." Jay held her tighter, then slowly stood up. His eyes burned as they fixed on the woman in front of him. "Listen carefully," he shouted, his voice echoing across the courtyard and silencing everyone around. You have no right to her anymore. Tuk abandoned his own child. And you're the reason her mother has been living in fear. The grandmother's face went pale, but she snapped back, snarling, "Do you really think hugging her makes her your daughter?" Jay laughed bitterly, tears shining in his eyes. "I don't need to think about it. Her calling me dad is enough." He bent down and kissed Maya's hair gently, then looked back at the woman, his voice sharp and steady. "If you come near her again, I'll call the police. Next time, there will be no warnings." The teacher and a security guard rushed over, their stern gazes locking onto the grandmother. In that moment, she knew she had lost, not because of the law, but because the child's heart had already chosen where she felt safe. The woman turned away and disappeared into the crowd, her retreating figure heavy with resentment. Jay lifted Maya onto his shoulder as the bell rang to end the school day. "From now on," he whispered, "Daddy won't let anyone scare you. I promise." Maya nodded through her tears, and for the first time in the middle of fear and chaos, she understood something clearly. She truly had a father. On the way home, the sky darkened, heavy with unspoken worries. Jay carried Maya in his arms, every step slower than usual. Her small body trembled, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, her face buried into his shoulder. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice broken. "Don't let Grandma be mean again." He stroked her back gently. "It's okay. Daddy's here. No one's taking you anywhere." Still, Maya refused to let go. Every passing car made her flinch and tighten her grip. It wasn't until the front door closed behind them that she dared to lift her head. The moment she saw Huyen rushing in from the kitchen, Maya jumped down and ran straight into her arms. "Mommy! Grandma was mean! She scared me!" The ladle slipped from Huyen's hand and hit the floor with a loud clang. "What did you say?" she asked, dropping to her knees, gripping Maya's shoulders, panic filling her eyes. "She came to my school," Maya said quickly. "She grabbed me. She said she'd take me to see Papa Tuk. I was so scared." Huyen pulled her daughter into a tight hug, her body going rigid. A chill ran down her spine as she looked up at Jay. "She really went to the school?" Jay sat down beside them, his face dark and serious, fists clenched. "She tried to take Maya away, if I had arrived any later." He stopped, swallowing hard. "I don't even want to think about it." Huyen couldn't speak. She hugged Maya tighter, her breathing uneven. "My baby. She's so small." Maya clutched Jay's hand suddenly, her voice shaking. "Daddy, don't go. I'm scared she'll come back." Jay leaned forward and wrapped both of them in his arms. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise no one will touch you again." Huyen rested her head on his shoulder, silent tears falling. She knew, deep down, that the danger wasn't over yet. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the door. Maya startled and clung to him tighter. Inside that small house, the three of them huddled together, facing a storm that hadn't passed, a storm called the past, refusing to let them go. That night, the house glowed faintly under a single lamp. Maya slept, but her rest was uneasy, brows furrowed, fingers clutching the blanket as if afraid to lose it. Every so often her body shuddered, trapped in lingering nightmares. Huyen stood by the bed, gently brushing her daughter's hair, afraid that even the smallest movement might break the fragile peace. When she stepped outside, she found Jay sitting on the doorstep, staring into the dark garden, exhaustion etched across his face. She sat beside him, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Then Huyen said softly, but firmly, "We can't let Maya live like this." Jay clenched his hands, memories resurfacing, old wounds, old damage that never truly healed. "I don't want anything to do with that family anymore," he muttered. "She's cruel," Huyen replied. She doesn't see Maya as a child. She's just using her. Jay took a deep breath, his voice breaking. I don't care about right or wrong anymore. I just want peace. I want to walk Maya to school without fear. I want her to laugh and grow up like any other child. He looked at Huyen, determination settling in his eyes. Tomorrow, we go to the police. Huyen nodded, a tear slipping free. Not from fear this time, but relief. For the first time, she knew she wasn't alone. Night fell heavily over the large house in Quan, like a thick curtain of darkness. Inside the spacious living room, only a single dim light remained on, illuminating the grandmother's face, cold, rigid, and calculating. Her hand clenched the phone so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. "They dare oppose me!" she hissed through gritted teeth, her voice trembling with rage. "A poor woman with a fatherless child, and they think they can humiliate me?" The bedroom door suddenly flew open. Huyen stormed in, his face drawn and pale, his eyes red with anger and disappointment. He didn't sit. He simply stood there, staring at the woman he had shared so many years with. "How far are you willing to take this?" he asked, his voice shaking. The grandmother turned away sharply. "I'm just putting my granddaughter back where she belongs." Huyen laughed bitterly. "My granddaughter?" His voice cracked. "What have you ever done for that child besides filling her life with fear?" The woman shot up from her chair. "If it weren't for me, Tuc wouldn't be where he is now. If people hadn't run away from their responsibilities, this family wouldn't be ruined." "Enough!" Huyen slammed his fist onto the table, the sound echoing through the room like thunder. "You're the one who destroyed everything." Silence swallowed the space. Huyen's chest rose and fell heavily before he spoke again, slowly, each word carrying weight. "If you ever hurt Maya or Huyen again," he said, locking eyes with her, "I'm leaving." The grandmother froze. "You wouldn't dare," she scoffed, though her voice trembled. "For an innocent child." Huyen interrupted calmly. And with that final shred of conscience, he turned and walked out. The door slammed shut. For a moment, the grandmother stood still. Then the fear drained from her eyes, replaced by something far darker. She slowly sat down, a twisted smile creeping across her lips. "He thinks warnings will stop me," she murmured. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. On the other end, a deep male voice answered. "Follow her and her daughter," she said coldly. "I don't need the girl to disappear. I just want them to never live in peace." She ended the call and stared at the family photo on the wall. The light reflected off Maya's innocent smile, a cruel contrast to the venom in the woman's eyes. "Pray for peace," she whispered. "I'll teach you how expensive peace really is." Outside, the wind roared louder. Another storm was forming, one far more dangerous than before. The next morning, a thin layer of mist hovered over the small garden behind the house. Rows of green vegetables swayed gently in the breeze, dew clinging to their leaves like quiet tears. Huyen was already awake. She slipped on an old shirt and stepped outside, carefully gathering herbs, tying each bundle neatly. Her movements were calm, practiced, but her eyes revealed lingering worry. Still, she smiled softly, as if reminding herself that life had to go on. Jay came out moments later, his face marked by a sleepless night. He watched her for a moment before speaking. "We're still going to the police station today." Huyen looked up, the morning light revealing both her exhaustion and her strength. "I know," she said gently. "I'll sell these at the market first. We'll still have time." Jay took the vegetables from her hands. "You don't have to push yourself like this." She shook her head. "If we stop because we're afraid, then she wins." Jay fell silent. In that moment, he didn't just see a mother. He He saw a woman standing firm with nothing but simple determination. Inside the house, Maya came out quietly. She wasn't crying. She sat at the small table, carefully arranging her notebooks and pencils in her backpack, each item placed with almost painful precision. Huyen's heart tightened. "You're up early, sweetheart." "I don't want to be late for school," Maya said softly. Jay turned his face away, afraid his red eyes would betray him. The child wasn't fearless. She was learning how to be strong. "Daddy will take you today," he said, placing a hand on her head. Maya smiled faintly and stood a little straighter. That morning unfolded like any other, selling vegetables, going to school, heading to the market, then to the police station. Yet they all knew this was no ordinary day. This was the morning they chose to face the storm. The police station was crowded, filled with the hum of an old fan and the steady footsteps of officers crossing the tiled floor. The atmosphere was heavy, serious. Huyen sat upright at a desk, hands clasped together, fingers cold. A police officer stood nearby, calm and attentive. "Please stay calm and tell us everything," he said. Huyen took a deep breath. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steadier. "Someone is trying to destroy my family. She has been following and threatening us. Yesterday, she went to my daughter's school." Her throat tightened as images flooded back. "She tried to take my daughter against her will. If we hadn't arrived in time..." The officer frowned, typing quickly. "Do you know who this person is?" Huyen lifted her head, eyes red but unwavering. "She's my ex-mother-in-law." The room fell silent. "She has no right to interfere in my life," Huyen continued firmly. "She manipulated my daughter and intended to kidnap her." "Are you certain?" the officer asked. "Yes," Huyen replied without hesitation. "My daughter was terrified." Jay stepped forward. "I was there. I saw her grab the child and try to take her away. I will testify if needed." The officer nodded, his expression hardening. "You did the right thing coming here." Huyen bowed her head, tears falling, not from weakness, but release. "I'm not asking for anything for myself. I just want to protect my daughter." The officer closed the file firmly. "We'll handle this." For Huyen, those words were more than procedure. They were the first spark of light after days of darkness. That evening, as they returned home, Maya held both their hands tightly. The sky glowed faintly with sunset, and for the first time in days, the air felt lighter. Yet somewhere, unseen, shadows still lingered, and while peace had finally been spoken aloud, the battle to protect it had only just begun. What begins as an ordinary school day quickly turns into a nightmare when Maya is nearly taken away by someone who should have been family. Her grandmother's sudden appearance at school exposes a dark past filled with manipulation, control, and hidden threats. Saved just in time by the man Maya now calls Dad, the incident leaves deep scars on the child and forces her mother, Huyen, to face a truth she has long tried to escape. As fear tightens around their small family, they make a brave decision to seek help from the police, hoping to finally reclaim a peaceful life. But while they choose courage, unseen forces begin to move in the shadows. Is reporting the truth enough to stop someone determined to destroy their peace? And what dangers still lie ahead, waiting for the perfect moment to strike?